Narrator, there's a feeling that comes after the storm, after the heartbreak, the burnout, the failure, the loss. It's not the sharp pain of the crisis itself. It's the quiet, gray emptiness that follows. Visuals. The black and white shots continue, a close-up of a clock, ticking slowly, signifying stagnant time. It's the feeling that your world, which was once in vibrant color, has been completely drained of its saturation.
You're functioning, but you're not living. You survive, but now you don't know how to begin again. What if I told you that an entire civilization felt this exact same way?
In the mid-14th century, Europe was shattered. The Black Death, a merciless plague, wiped out as much as half the population. It was a trauma on an unimaginable scale. Society was broken. Faith was shaken. The world was, quite literally, a dark place, suffocating under the weight of grief and fear. Visuals. The bleak historical images slowly begin to be overlaid with a warm, golden light. We transition from the gritty woodcuts to a stunning, high-definition drone shot soaring over the Duomo in Florence at sunrise. And yet, from the ashes of that devastation came this, the Renaissance. The single greatest explosion of creativity, innovation, and human potential the world has ever seen. Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Galileo. A rediscovery of science, philosophy, and art that dragged humanity out of the medieval darkness and into a new light. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't just a few talented people getting lucky. It was a deliberate, fundamental shift in how people saw themselves and their place in the universe. And that is the secret we are exploring today. Scientific diagrams from Da Vinci's notebooks, and modern-day people achieving personal goals. This isn't just a history lesson, this is a blueprint. Because the principles that lifted Florence out of the plague years are the exact same principles that can lift you out of your own dark times. It's about how to engineer your own personal renaissance. So, how do you go from just surviving to truly thriving? How do you bring the color back into your world? It starts with one radical idea that the thinkers of the Renaissance resurrected from the ancient world, an idea that is the first, essential step to your rebirth. Visuals. The narrator appears on screen for the first time, in a well-lit, thoughtful setting, perhaps with books or art in the background. They are engaging and make direct eye contact with the camera. Narrator. The word Renaissance literally means rebirth. But a rebirth isn't about erasing your past and becoming a totally new person. It's about rediscovering the most powerful parts of who you've always been. The brilliant minds of the 1400s didn't invent everything from scratch. They looked backward to find the way forward. They obsessed over the art, the philosophy, and the science of ancient Greece and Rome, a time they saw as a golden age, when human potential seemed limitless. This was the birth of humanism. And no, that doesn't just mean being a nice person. In the Renaissance, humanism was a revolutionary belief that your life, here on Earth, has inherent value.
That you, your mind, your creativity, your potential, are worthy of intense study, celebration, and development. After 1,000 years of being told to devalue the self and focus only on the afterlife, this was a radical act of defiance.
And it's our first principle for building your personal renaissance. Look back to move forward. Visuals. A modern-day person in their late 30s opens a dusty box. Inside is an old, forgotten sketchbook or a high school trophy. They smile, a flicker of a past self returning. Narrator. So what does it mean for you to look back? It doesn't mean dwelling on the pain or the loss. It means conducting an archaeological dig of your own life. It means searching for the evidence of who you were before the storm hit. What did you love to do when you were 10 years old, before anyone told you it wasn't a viable career path? What subject lit a fire in your mind in school?
When was the last time you felt truly, uncomplicatedly alive? Visuals. A quick montage of Renaissance scholars poring over ancient, crumbling scrolls.
We see illustrations of Francesco Petrarch, the father of humanism, excitedly rediscovering the lost letters of the Roman orator, Cicero. Petrarch didn't just passively hope for inspiration, he actively hunted for it. He spent years traveling, digging through monastic libraries, piecing together fragments of a world he believed held the keys to a better future. He called the 1,000 years before him the Dark Ages, not just because of the plague, but because he felt humanity had forgotten its own brilliance. Your past, the one before the burnout, before the grief, is your personal Rome. It's a repository of your forgotten brilliance. So here is your first assignment. Find a quiet moment and a blank page, and ask yourself one question. What is something I used to love that I have forgotten? Don't judge the answer. Don't worry if it's practical. Just write it down. Sketching superheroes. Playing the piano. Learning about dinosaurs. That thing you loved contains a piece of your authentic energy, and our goal is to reconnect with it. Because that connection is the first spark of light. Narrator. But rediscovery is only step one. The humanists didn't just read old books and say, wow, the Romans were great. They took that ancient knowledge and used it to build something entirely new. They stood on the shoulders of giants to see further. And that leads to a second, powerful principle. One that is a direct assault on the burnout culture of our modern world. Visuals. We see Leonardo da Vinci's notebook pages. The intricate sketches of a flying machine, next to detailed anatomical drawings of a human heart. The geometric perfection of the Vitruvian man. We then see modern-day quick cuts, a lawyer taking a pottery class, a software engineer learning to bake sourdough, a nurse practicing calligraphy. Today, we are pushed to specialize, to pick one lane and stay in it. To be an expert, a guru, a niche content creator. We optimize one part of ourselves at the expense of all the others.
The Renaissance geniuses would have thought this was insane. Their defining feature wasn't singular focus, it was voracious, unapologetic curiosity. Leonardo da Vinci was not just a painter.
He was a scientist, an engineer, an inventor, an anatomist, a musician. He understood that dissecting a body helped him paint a more lifelike portrait. He saw that studying the flow of water could inform his ideas about the flight of birds. For him, it was all connected. Everything fed everything else. This is our second principle. Embrace the polymath. A personal renaissance happens when you stop living in silos. The dark times often make our worlds very small. We get trapped in a loop of work, eat, sleep, survive. The cure is to intentionally introduce new, seemingly unrelated inputs into your system. Visuals. We see the person from earlier who found their sketchbook. Now, they are tentatively drawing, not for an audience, but for themselves. It's clumsy, but there's a look of focused joy on their face. Narrator. You don't have to become Leonardo da Vinci. This is about giving yourself permission to be a beginner. It's about the joy of learning without the pressure of mastery. If you work with spreadsheets all day, spend an hour learning 3 chords on a guitar. If you're a writer, go to a science museum and marvel at the laws of physics. This cross-pollination is creative rocket fuel. It builds new pathways in your brain. It reminds you that your identity is not limited to your job title or your recent struggles. You are a vast, multifaceted being with infinite capacity for growth. Your second assignment is an experiment in curiosity. This week, do one thing for 1 hour that has absolutely nothing to do with your career or your daily obligations. Take a free online course in a subject you know nothing about. Watch a documentary on a topic you've never considered. Go to a hardware store and learn how one simple tool works. Feed your brain something new. Because when you do that, you're not just distracting yourself. You're rebuilding the very engine of enthusiasm. You're starting to mix new colors onto your palette, and once you have those colors, you need somewhere to put them. You need a canvas. And that brings us to the most visible, tangible, and perhaps most terrifying step of all, the act of creation itself. Narrator. For over 100 years, the magnificent Cathedral of Florence, the heart of the city, had a giant, open wound. They had built the church so big, so ambitiously, that no one knew how to build a dome large enough to cover it. It was a public monument to failure, an unsolvable problem, open to the rain. Everyone said it was impossible. Until one man, Filippo Brunelleschi, a goldsmith and clockmaker with no formal architectural training, came forward with a plan so audacious, so radical, that many thought he was a madman. He proposed building not one dome, but two, an inner and an outer shell, using revolutionary techniques he had reverse-engineered by studying ancient Roman ruins like the Pantheon. Visuals, animated graphics overlay the old painting, showing Brunelleschi's double-shell design, the herringbone brick pattern, and the innovative ox-driven hoist he invented to lift materials. The visuals convey ingenuity and problem-solving. It took 16 years of relentless work, but he did it. He closed the wound. He didn't just put a roof on a building. He gave the city a new heart. That dome was a testament in stone and mortar that what seemed impossible was, in fact, achievable through human ingenuity, courage, and sheer will. This is our third principle: build your Duomo. After a period of darkness, your energy is often internal. It's a swirl of thoughts, anxieties, and unprocessed feelings. The cure is to externalize it, to take that churning internal energy and give it a physical form in the outside world. Your Duomo doesn't have to be a masterpiece that changes a city skyline, but it must be a project. Something with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Something you can point to and say, "I made that." Visuals. The modern person who was sketching is now building a small, simple bookshelf from scratch. We see the wood, the screws, the measuring. We see a moment of frustration, then a moment of focus, and finally, the finished bookshelf. Standing proudly in their apartment, they place a single book on it. Narrator, write a short story. Plant a small herb garden on your windowsill. Learn to cook one complex recipe from start to finish. Code a simple website. Finish a puzzle. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's an act of production, not consumption. We spend so much of our lives scrolling, watching, consuming what others have made. A personal renaissance demands that you flip that switch. You become the creator. Because making something tangible does two magical things. First, it proves to your weary brain that you still have agency, that you can affect the world around you. Second, it gives you a focal point for your energy that isn't your own pain. You are building something other than a narrative of your own survival. So here is your third assignment. Choose one small project that you can complete in the next 2 weeks. Not a life-changing goal, just a tangible task. A one-brick project. What is the first brick you can lay today?
Write it down. Then go and lay it. Visuals. Cut to a painting of a bustling Renaissance workshop, a Bottega. We see young apprentices grinding pigments, older artists sketching, and a master, perhaps Verrocchio, instructing a young Leonardo da Vinci.
It's a scene of chaotic, collaborative creation. Narrator, but Brunelleschi and Leonardo didn't do it alone. The myth of the solitary genius, locked away in an attic, is largely just that, a myth.
The Renaissance flourished in noisy, competitive, and deeply collaborative workshops, or botte. This was the creative ecosystem. Young artists learned their craft alongside masters, sharing techniques, challenging each other, and even working together on the same paintings.
They were surrounded by people who were engaged in the same difficult, glorious work of creation. This cross-pollination wasn't a distraction, it was the entire engine of progress. And that brings us to our final, crucial principle. Because after a dark time, the instinct is to hide, to isolate, to protect what little energy you have left. The Renaissance teaches us to do the exact opposite. Our fourth principle, build your Bottega. A personal renaissance cannot happen in a vacuum. You need a creative community, and I don't mean networking. I mean finding the people who light you up, who are wrestling with their own projects, who understand the frustrating, beautiful process of trying to make something new. Visuals. A montage of modern Bottegas, a writer's group in a coffee shop, giving constructive feedback. A community garden where neighbors work side by side. A coding boot camp with students huddled around a whiteboard. A band practicing in a garage, laughing after hitting a wrong note. Narrator, your Bottega might be a book club, a hiking group, a weekly call with one trusted friend who is also trying to build their own Duomo. It's a space where you can share your small wins and your frustrating setbacks without judgment, and it works both ways. One of the most powerful things you can do to accelerate your own rebirth is to become a patron for someone else's. Champion their work, offer a word of encouragement. Ask curious questions about their project. By investing energy into someone else's growth, you are reminded of the universal human drive to create, and you get out of your own head. You rejoin the world. So your final assignment is an act of connection. This week, do one of two things. Either share your one brick project with one person you trust, or reach out to a friend and ask them about a passion project of theirs. And then just listen. Visuals. We return to the narrator in their thoughtful space. The light is warm and direct. They speak with a calm finality. Narrator, look back to move forward. Embrace the polymath. Build your Duomo. And find your Bottega. These aren't just quaint ideas from history. They are a four-part strategy for reigniting your life. A renaissance isn't a single, dramatic moment of inspiration. It's a series of small, deliberate acts. It's finding an old sketchbook. It's watching a documentary on geology. It's laying one perfect brick. It's sending one text message of support. The world may have drained the color from your life, but you are the one holding the palette. The Renaissance teaches us that we are not just victims of circumstance, passively waiting for the darkness to lift. We are the artists. We are the engineers. We are the architects of our own rebirth. The light doesn't just return on its own. You have to build the windows to let it in. So, the only question left is, what will you build? The screen remains black for a beat. Then, a new image fades in, a close-up of a single gold florin. The currency of Renaissance Florence. It is intricate and beautiful. Narrator. But there's a practical question that can stop a renaissance before it even begins. It's the one that whispers in your ear when you pick up that old sketchbook or look up that online course. Who has the time? Who has the money? Who has the energy for this? It's a fair question. Rebirth requires resources. And after a period of just surviving, your resources, emotional, financial, and temporal, are often at an all-time low. The geniuses of Florence faced the same problem. Art and innovation are not free. So, how did they fund the greatest creative explosion in history? They had patrons. Visuals. We see paintings of the Medici family, Cosimo the Elder, Lorenzo the Magnificent. They are depicted not as warriors, but as thoughtful, powerful civic leaders. We then see images of the art they commissioned, Botticelli's Primavera, works by Donatello and Fra Angelico. The Medici family, a dynasty of bankers, didn't just buy art, they invested in people. They created an ecosystem where artists and thinkers had the financial security and the psychological freedom to do their most daring work. A patron provides the most valuable resource of all, the space to create without the constant pressure of immediate survival. In your life, you are unlikely to have a Medici show up at your door, so you must learn to do for yourself what they did for Florence. This is our fifth principle, and it is the most practical of all. Become your own Medici. Self-patronage is not about being rich, it's about a radical shift in how you allocate your own resources. It's about treating your own rebirth as a project worthy of real investment. Visuals quick, satisfying shots of modern-day self-patronage. A person setting an automatic transfer for a small amount of money into a creative fund savings account. Someone firmly blocking out a 2-hour slot in their digital calendar and labeling it studio time. Another person clears a small corner of their messy desk, setting up a single lamp and a notebook, creating a dedicated space. Narrator. What does this look like? First, it's patronage of time. Look at your week and carve out one non-negotiable hour for your Duomo project. Put it in your calendar, like a doctor's appointment. Defend that time ruthlessly from other obligations. That is your Medici grant of time. Second, it's patronage of resources. Can you set aside $5 a week for art supplies, a book, a ticket to a museum?
It's not an expense, it's an investment in your own human capital. You are funding your own R&D department. And finally, and most importantly, it's patronage of belief.
The Medicis championed their artists against critics. You must champion your own fragile, new beginnings against your own inner critic. When that voice says, "This is pointless," or "You're not good enough," Your inner patron must step in and say, "We are funding this experiment. We believe in the process, not the immediate result." So your next assignment is an act of patronage. This week, formally invest in your own renaissance. It can be scheduling 1 hour of protected time, creating a tiny budget for your project, or simply writing down on a piece of paper, "I am the official patron of this project," and taping it to your wall. Make your support for yourself tangible. Narrator: once you've created a space for your renaissance, you have to decide what to fill it with. And here, the Renaissance offers another secret, one that has almost been lost in our age of information overload. It has to do with how you see the world. Visuals: we see a classic medieval painting. The figures are flat, symbolic. The background is pure gold leaf. There's no sense of real depth or place. We then cut sharply to a painting by Masaccio or Piero della Francesca. We see linear perspective for the first time. The world is suddenly three-dimensional, realistic, mathematically ordered.
It's a revelation. Before the Renaissance, art wasn't primarily concerned with depicting reality as it was. It was about telling a symbolic story. But a new generation of artists became obsessed with something else, seeing what was actually there.
They invented mathematical perspective to render depth. They studied botany to draw plants correctly. They dissected human bodies, often in secret and at great personal risk, to understand the muscles and bones beneath the skin. They did this because they believed that truth was found in the rigorous, direct observation of the world. In our world, we are drowning in information, but we are starving for observation.
We scroll past 1,000 images, but we truly see very few. The burnout, the grief, the depression, it makes us turn inward, to ruminate on our own thoughts and feelings.
The world becomes a blurry backdrop to our internal drama. The cure is to reverse the flow of attention. This is our sixth principle: learn to see again. Visuals: a montage of intense, focused observation, the face of a watchmaker, peering through a loupe. A chef, minutely inspecting a leaf of basil. A child, utterly captivated by an ant on the sidewalk. The modern person from our story is sitting by a window, not scrolling on their phone, but just watching the rain fall, noticing the patterns it makes on the glass. Narrator: learning to see again is an act of militant mindfulness. It is a rebellion against distraction. It means choosing to look at one thing deeply, instead of a million things superficially. When you look at a tree with the eyes of a Renaissance artist, you don't just see a tree, you see the texture of the bark, the precise geometry of the branches, the way the leaves turn in the wind. You are pulling yourself out of the abstract world of your anxieties and into the concrete reality of the present moment. This is where inspiration lives, not in the endless scroll, but in the infinite detail of the single, observable thing. So here is your next exercise. It takes 5 minutes. Choose one ordinary object in your home: a piece of fruit, a shoe, a coffee mug. Set a timer, and for 5 minutes, do nothing but look at it. Notice things you've never noticed before. The scratches, the reflections, the subtle variations in its color. Don't judge it. Don't analyze its meaning. Just see it. You are training your brain to find the extraordinary in the ordinary. You are teaching yourself to see the world in color again. One object at a time. Visuals: we return to the modern person. They are in their apartment, which now looks a little brighter. The bookshelf they built is there. The sketchbook is open on the table. A friend is with them. They are talking, smiling, sharing the open sketchbook. It's a quiet moment of connection, a small Bottega. Narrator: a renaissance is a process of reconstruction. You lay a new foundation by looking back to find your core materials. You build new neural pathways by embracing your curiosity. You create a structure by building a tangible project, your Duomo. You reinforce it by finding your community, your Bottega. You fund the work by becoming your own dedicated patron. And you furnish it with inspiration by learning to see the world again. It is a slow, methodical process. It is the work of a lifetime, built one day at a time. The darkness does not vanish overnight, but you begin to build small shelters of light, a corner for your work. An hour of protected time. A conversation with a friend. A single, perfectly observed detail. And one day, you look up from your work and realize that the sun is streaming through a window you built with your own hands. The world is in color. Not because the storm passed, but because you learned how to be the artist of your own life once more. You learned to mix the pigments yourself. Final visual. A close-up on the person's hand, holding a pen or a paintbrush. They pause for a moment, then confidently make the first mark on a blank page. The screen fades slowly to black. The screen remains black for a beat. Then, a new visual fades in, a close-up of one of Michelangelo's unfinished prisoner sculptures, a powerful human form, straining to emerge from a rough, uncarved block of marble. It is a work in progress, full of tension and potential. Narrator. So you begin. You lay the first brick of your Duomo. You sketch the first line in your forgotten notebook. You play the first clumsy chord on the guitar. And then, the voice arrives, the cold, familiar whisper of the inner critic. This isn't very good. Who do you think you are? You'll never be as good as them. Why bother? It's not perfect, and right there, the entire Renaissance can grind to a halt, paralyzed by the gap between the masterpiece in your mind and the flawed reality in front of you. The artists of the Renaissance were obsessed with perfection.
But they also had a secret weapon against the paralysis it can cause. It was a concept at the heart of their new, modern ideal of how to live. In his guide to being the ideal gentleman, Castiglione coined a word, sprezzatura.
It's often translated as a certain nonchalance, or studied carelessness. It's the art of making the difficult look effortless. When a courtier danced beautifully, or recited a poem perfectly, the goal was to make it seem as if it came to them naturally, without any strain or effort.
But this wasn't about being lazy or gifted. It was the exact opposite. Sprezzatura was the visible result of thousands of hours of hidden, grueling, and perfect practice.
You practice the dance steps until your feet bleed, so that in the ballroom, you can appear to simply float. You write 100 terrible drafts of a poem, so that the final version sounds like it was whispered to you by a muse.
This is our seventh principle, and it is a direct antidote to perfectionism. Practice in private, then embrace sprezzatura. Visuals. A montage of the ugly work. A Michelin star chef in a test kitchen, trying a dish and spitting it out in disgust.
A stand-up comedian in a near-empty club, testing a new joke that completely bombs. A programmer staring at a screen full of broken code, head in their hands. Narrator. We live in an age of performance. Social media shows us everyone's finished product, their perfect vacation photo, their successful business launch. We see the effortless sprezzatura without seeing the messy, frustrating, private work that went into it, and we mistakenly believe we should be able to skip straight to the masterpiece. A personal renaissance requires you to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. It means giving yourself a sacred, private space, a metaphorical workshop, where you are allowed to be terrible, where you can make mistakes, experiment, and create messes without the fear of judgment from yourself or others. This is how you build real skill. You separate the practice from the performance. Most of your time should be spent in practice mode, where the only goal is to learn and explore. Only then, once you have put in the hours, can you allow yourself to perform. So here's your next assignment, an exercise in imperfection. This week, create something with the express purpose of it being mediocre.
Write a deliberately bad poem about what you ate for lunch. Draw a cartoon of your pet with your non-dominant hand. The goal is not to make something good. The goal is to make something.
To prove to your inner critic that you are in charge, and that you are giving yourself permission to be a beginner. Visuals. A dramatic painting of a ship caught in a raging storm at sea. The waves are monstrous. The sky is black. It represents chaos and the unpredictable nature of fate. Narrator. But there is a greater fear than imperfection. After a major life crisis, it's the feeling that you are no longer in control. That you are a ship at the mercy of the storm. The economy, a diagnosis, a betrayal. These forces are bigger than you. They are the waves that toss you about. This feeling of powerlessness is the very essence of the dark times. A Florentine diplomat, watching his city and his own life get torn apart by political chaos. wrestled with this exact problem.
His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli believed the world was governed by two forces: fortuna, which is luck, fate, and the unpredictable circumstances that befall us, and virtue, which is not virtue, as we know it, but skill, drive, courage, and the bold, decisive action you take to shape your own destiny. He argued that fortuna governs maybe half of our lives, but the other half is up to us. He wrote that fortune is a raging river that floods the plains, but a person of virtue, during quiet times, builds dams and levees, so that when the river rages, its power can be contained or redirected. They don't try to stop the storm, but they prepare for it. They act. This is our final, most empowering principle: answer fortuna with virtue. When you are just surviving, you are living entirely in the world of fortuna. You are reacting to what life throws at you. A personal renaissance begins the moment you decide to exercise your virtue. It is the moment you stop just being a victim of your story and start being its author.
Visuals: a montage of quiet, decisive actions. A person who feels trapped by debt sits down and makes a spreadsheet, their first budget. A person grieving a loss finally puts on their running shoes and walks out the door for the first time in months.
Someone who feels isolated looks up a local volunteer group and sends a single email. Narrator: exercising virtue doesn't mean you can control everything.
You cannot. The river will still rage, but you can choose your response. You can build your levee. It is the shift from passive endurance to active engagement with your own life. It is the small, defiant act of agency that declares, "This much I can control. This choice is mine." This is the very engine of rebirth. You take a risk, you make a choice. You act, even when you are afraid, and the outcome is uncertain. Because the act itself is what generates the energy. It is what reminds you that you are not just a piece of driftwood in the flood.
You are the engineer. So here is your final assignment: an act of virtue. Look at your life and find one small area where you feel completely at the mercy of fortuna.
Then, identify one single, proactive step, no matter how small, that you can take this week to build a metaphorical levee. Don't try to solve the whole problem. Just take one action that is a choice, not a reaction. Write that action down, and then, do it. Visuals: we return to the narrator for the last time. Their setting is simple. The camera is closer now, more intimate. Narrator: the story of the Renaissance is the story of humanity remembering its own power. It began by looking backward to rediscover a forgotten brilliance. It was fueled by a voracious curiosity that crossed every boundary. It was made real by building tangible things in the world, and sustained by the energy of a creative community. It was funded by a radical belief in its own potential, and sharpened by a newfound ability to truly see the world. And it was protected from despair by embracing imperfection, and by answering the chaos of fate with the courage of bold, deliberate action. These are not just chapters in a history book. They are the stages of your own return. The journey out of the darkness is not a straight line. It is a spiral.
You will revisit these stages again and again. You will have days of brilliant virtue and days where fortuna feels overwhelming. You will have moments of effortless sprezzatura and moments where you feel like a clumsy beginner.
That is the work. It is not to achieve a final, static perfection. It is to stay in the dynamic, messy, beautiful process of becoming. The Renaissance didn't just happen, it was built by thousands of people, each laying their own brick, painting their own line, making their own choice. They decided that ruin was not the end of the story. They decided to build the future themselves. Now, it's your turn. Final visuals. We see the modern person from our story. They are hanging the small, framed sketch they made on their wall. It's the sketch they started earlier. It's not perfect, but it is finished. They step back and look at it. A small, genuine smile of satisfaction. They have created something new and put it in the world. The room is full of soft, morning light.